here.
Man, that's a great intro.
Never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah. We're all good, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Man, that intro always gets me. Crockpot did such a good job there.
Shout out to Deebs. He never ceases to disappoint with those Johns.
Hang on, is there like an echo in here or something?
Is my mic messed up?
I think it's like playing back in my ear what we already said. Hang on. I don't think so. Yeah.
I can hear it.
Let me see if this works any better. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I'm not sure what was going on there. There was something with the echo, but I think it fixed it. If you can hear me, we're good.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, perfect. All right, what is up, everyone? Sorry for the delay there. We're still kind of getting used to this whole live thing. I've never done it from State College before in my place here, but welcome back for episode 40 of Breaking the Bank, a Phillies baseball podcast that is presented by the Delco Media Group, as well as the Painted Lines. I am, as I said, live from State College, Pennsylvania. My name is Brendan Ricciardi. Our good friend Drew Robinson is unable to join us tonight, so filling in for him, we have Joe DiProsperos, who mostly covers the Sixers for the Painted Lines. Joey is here from the Parasite Paradise known as Delco, Pennsylvania. What's up, Joe?
I'm going to ignore the fact that you said Parasite because it's far from Parasite here. But what's up, man? This is the first time we've done a pod in how long? Is this the first time maybe ever? Even though we've known each other for years now.
I think we spent most of our summer days talking about the Phils while throwing dodgeballs at 9-year-olds at work, and I think that's probably better than most people's summers, I would say. What do you think?
Oh man, I mean, who wouldn't love to just throw dodgeballs at not even teenagers, little kids for about 4 or 5 days a week. I mean, I think that sounds pretty fun to me.
Most of them deserved being hit if we're being honest. We were just doing our jobs. All right. So we have episode 40 here, Joe making his Breaking the Bank debut. We usually like to get things started for the most part, kind of talking a little bit around the league, talking about the rest of the teams besides the Phillies to kind of set the tone and get us rolling here. So I think the biggest story that's kind of going on right now is the NL West, because you have the Dodgers and the Giants are without question the two top teams in baseball right now. They have been for the whole season. One of them's going to have to play in a wild card game. And all season long, the Giants have been in first, but the Dodgers swept the Braves and the Giants lost 3 out of 4 to the Brewers. The Giants are now in second place. The Dodgers are taking over.
Yep. First off, thank you, LA, for that sweep. Appreciate it. I'll send you a bag of a box of cheesesteaks if you want to. But yeah, I mean, the Dodgers, first off, they're already unreal, and the fact that they're getting Kershaw and Gonsolin from IL back in a couple of days is going to make them even more pretty much unbeatable to this point.
They have really just not played up to their full potential team yet this season. I think that they're kind of still just trying to hit their stride in that sense, and I just don't know that the Giants are going to be able to hold them off for much longer going down the stretch. This is the Dodgers' division to lose.
Yep, it is. Absolutely. Well, they're the defending champs for a reason. And the Giants have been overachieving. So
we don't need to get into all the Gabe Kapler conversation here. We'll save that for another day. But the reality is one of those two teams is going to have to play in a wild card game. So let's look at the other half of that wild card game, because it's been really interesting to see how San Diego was in that position basically the entire season. They've kind of fell apart as their pitching has fell apart. The Cardinals and the Reds had a big series this week, and the Reds right now are in the driver's seat.
Yep. And when Nick Castellanos hit those 2 home runs, I was checking on all my loved ones to make sure that nothing catastrophic happened. But, yeah, I mean, that's the team that the Phils are going to be chasing in the wild card if the division becomes, out of reach. But, yeah. But their bats have cooled off of late as well. But, I mean, they're still a really solid team.
and it really makes that series loss against the Reds like 2 weekends ago look a lot worse now.
What are you gonna do? There's still 2.5 out, and we still have a month of baseball left.
Yeah, most of the season, I never once pictured that the wild card game would get this close. I think that for a while, the Padres, Dodgers, and Giants were kind of in their own tier there, with the Brewers just doing their own thing because their division sucks. But the reality is that, the Padres have their work cut out for them. They might have the most on paper talent when everyone's there, but they're not all there.
It's kind of wild how quickly they've fallen over the last month. Tatis is still in pretty much. I don't know if he's the favorite, but he probably is either the second favorite or the favorite for MVP right now. But they've just fallen off pretty significantly over the last month, and it's a little weird. It's a little weird.
It's been interesting to see that they moved Tatis to the outfield, and I wonder if that's something they would do long term because he's a weird character in the sense of the plays he makes that are like in the hole or plays that show off his athleticism are plays that many shortstops don't make. But he's not very good at the routine plays. He led the league in errors, and I wonder if him moving to the outfield to be able to use that athleticism more is something that they consider long term.
Yeah, but any shortcomings on defense, he more than makes up for at the plate. I think anyone can attest to that, though.
He 100% would be the MVP if he stayed healthy. And it's a shame that we have to look at this from the fact that we're Phillies fans rooting for Harper, but he's been on the injured list, I think, 3 times, and he still has as many homers as he does. If the Padres don't make the playoffs and the Phillies don't either, they might give it to Harper in that respect. But I feel like if one of the teams makes it and the other doesn't, that might be the deciding factor for them.
I think it's safe to say Bryce has been the best all-around hitter in the league the entire year. And I feel like the only thing that would potentially hurt the MVP candidacy, because I think Bryce is the favorite at this point, but I feel like the RBI count is what will do him dirty in the end because, voters can be frivolous like that. And that was the only thing that I think would be preventing him from being the surefire MVP. If he had maybe like 10 or 15 more RBIs, I don't think it would really be a discussion at this point.
Yeah, and it's a shame that his numbers with runners on base really aren't as terrible as you would think. It's more that early in the season, McCutchen got off to a really slow start, and that's when they had him at leadoff. So he really wasn't getting that many opportunities, which is a shame. And I'm not going to sit up here and say RBIs aren't important. Like, you talk to anyone that's played the game at a high level, and they'll tell you how important it is to be able to drive guys in on base, but it shouldn't be the number one factor that a lot of these writers think it is.
Yeah. But pretty much every single other stat is MVP worthy at this point. But it would really take a lot for them to dock him of MVP consideration just strictly off of RBIs.
Yeah, it's unfortunate how that goes. But last thing we usually do here before we go into the Phillies talk is just do a quick look at the postseason picture. We didn't really talk much about the American League, so let's start over there. The Rays are currently leading the American League comfortably at this point. They're 84-49 at the time of this live stream. And for people listening later, this is on Thursday night, 7:38 local time right now. We got the Astros in second in that division, White Sox in third. Pretty much been leading the division most of the year. So really nothing in that top 3 is very surprising.
Yeah. All 3 great teams. Playoff time is going to be a slog, especially in the AL.
It's at the point now where I think that everybody would be rooting against the Astros in most series just based on the history. But what happens if they play like the Yankees, where the rest of the country hates them too? Are they going to root for the Yankees in a series? Is that where we're at?
At this point, I feel like. Plus, if they have any more postseason success, there is going to be another investigation into them. So, if the Astros and Yankees face off in a postseason series and you are rooting for the Astros, then you clearly just wanted to watch the world burn. So,
we need good villains out there, and guys like Correa and Altuve, like, they've been so unlikable in this process of like always, blowing off like the reporters and giving fake, like, weak apologies. I think that there are people that just enjoy that villain team because they like watching everybody else's favorite team lose.
It would have been better if they just doubled down instead of giving a half-assed apology.
Yeah, they should have just been like, yeah, you caught us.
Just say if they just said you still have to hit the baseball, You could know the pitch all you want, but you still have to hit it. Just
Basically.
double down if you're gonna dip into the villain thing.
Yeah. We also got, as of right now, a Yankees and Red Sox wild card game, which would probably destroy the ratings for any wild card game that we've ever had so far. These guys have not played in the wild card game yet, because usually one of them wins the division, or one of the division, one does the playoff in general. So whatever it is, that game would be insane, no matter whether it's at Yankee Stadium or Fenway.
Talk about the Yankees surging too. And the Red Sox completely fallen off as well. But I mean, that game is going to be absolutely crazy if that does end up being the wild card game.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I do the power rankings for the painted lines, and I had the Yankees, I think, at like 9. Then I had to move them up to 7. Then I had to move, they're in the top 5 this week just because you win 13 games in a row. You don't do that by accident.
But they did have a losing streak right after that, though. So
yeah, which is funny. They lost 4 in a row. So depending on how the end of these series go this week, I might have to lower them again. Which, oh well, it is what it is. But yeah, the power rankings will definitely be interesting here. Moving on to the National League real quick, just to wrap up the playoff picture. We already talked a little bit about it. We have the Dodgers now leading the division. Brewers sitting comfortably in second. Nobody's catching the Dodgers or the Brewers in that respect. So whoever wins the NL East will be the 3 seed. And right now, that is the Braves, but it's very, very close. The Brewers are actually only 3 games behind the Dodgers, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and who are they playing this coming week?
The Dodgers and Giants play each other.
Oh God, yeah. So that series. I mean, maybe a little early to say, but that series is probably going to be the one that decides that division.
So. It probably will, because they play each other again this year.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's definitely going to be the big one. We got the Giants and the Reds is currently the wild card game right now. The Giants and the Red is the wild card game, and the Giants have a 13.5 game lead on the second wild card. So I think it's safe to say that whoever loses the NL West will host the wild card game.
But if you've been watching the last week of Phillies baseball can be weird. So
listen, I'll make a bet right now. If they blow a 13.5 game lead in a month, I don't even know if that's possible.
Nah, they won't. I'm just playing, but yeah, they have a stranglehold on that wild card spot. Whoever comes in second place in the NL West is going to get the first wild card spot.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into the Phils series here. It got a little dicey at the end, but a 3-game sweep over the lowly Washington Nationals. We'll start off with game 1 just to kind of keep things in order here. Harper just absolutely loves hitting in this batter's box. I think his quote to Todd Zolecki from MLB.com was he feels like he's the best hitter in the world in that park, which is hilarious. But he hit a 2-run shot to get it going in the first, and it kind of closed out his dominant August in a big way.
If Bryce played every single game of the season at Nationals Park, he would be the greatest player of all time. So he absolutely just loves torturing the Nats. That's all you can really see at this point.
Going to Nats games is funny. My brother lives in D.C., and we'll go to a bunch of games during the summer, and there are so many people there that just buy tickets solely to go and boo him. They don't care what's happening the rest of the 9 innings of the game. We're going to boo Bryce every time he gets up, and usually he does well, so they get weaker as the game goes. But I'll never forget that first game back in D.C. against Scherzer. He struck him out twice, but then Harper had a double and a homer, and everybody got real quiet.
Yeah, I always wonder where those Nats fans come out of the woodworks, because they come and go all the time.
Yeah, it's just a weird fan base because there's so many people that live in D.C. that aren't from D.C., like people that live there for work, and it's just let's just go to a Nats game. It's an excuse to get drunk in public.
I was going to say, there are definitely not that many people that live in D.C. that are actually diehard Nats fans.
No, not at all. Well, in this game, the first thing I want to talk about a little bit was that Zack Wheeler let up 4 runs in 6 innings. And, you look at it from the big picture, it's not a terrible start, but it's just you're playing the Nationals who stink. You're supposed to be the ace that's in the Cy Young race. You gave your team a chance to win, obviously, but you got better than that.
Yeah, and shout out to Joe Edinger, by the way. I think he hasn't had a quality start in weeks, I believe. I forget how long it's actually been, but I think at this point, I think it's the workload that's really starting to catch up to him, and he's starting to get fatigued pretty easily because he's pitched the most innings in all baseball by a pretty wide margin. I think by 6 2/3 innings. And no matter how much you throw, and speaking of that, to managerial malpractice, by the way, like I think about the game against Tampa when he still went 8 innings, even though he gave up 5 runs, and the game against the D-backs when he went 6 2/3 but allowed like 7 runs. That's managerial malpractice, and you're just overworking the guy for no reason. And I don't care how in shape you could be as a pitcher. If you pitch that heavy amount of innings, it's going to catch up to you at some point, and I think it's caught up to him a little bit, even though he hasn't totally fallen off, and he's still very much in the Cy Young debate.
And, it goes back to the bullpen, because if you had a bullpen of guys that you trust, then it's going to be a lot easier to take guys out earlier. You look at why Tampa Bay is so good every October. It's because their starters never throw more than 5 or 6 innings a game. So everybody's arm is fresh come October, and they have the data and the analytics that kind of let them know when to put their guys in, their pitchers in at the right time. And I think that having all of their guys at as close to 100% as you can get. You lose Glass now, they don't even skip a beat. You lose Morton, they don't skip a beat. You lose Blake Snell, they don't skip a beat. They've got to figure it out over there, and that's what you got to try and be like. You got to build up that bullpen so the starters have a little less pressure.
I mean, it was crazy. There was a week there when Joe Girardi did not trust the bullpen at all for no reason. It wasn't like they were in this terrible rough patch, and it's like, all right, yeah, I can totally get why you want to put Zack Wheeler in for 7+ innings, even though he's given up 4 or 5 runs. They're still in a pretty good stretch. So if that move just made absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Another good example of that was the Nola game, the almost perfect game, because he should not have still been in at that time in the 9th inning. What was it, 117 pitches? Like, you lost the shutout, you lost the perfect game, the no-hitter, just trying to get the win at this point.
Yep. But, I mean, hey, that's a sword, I guess, that he's willing to die on, especially in that game.
Yeah. Well, this Phil's game in game 1 was pretty close for a while. It was 3-3 until the clutchest man on earth, Ronald Torreyes, hit a 3-run triple. I don't know what Yadiel Hernandez was doing in left field. I just think he just, plain and simple, just completely misread it and just mistimed his jump. But regardless, 3 runs scored. And there are a lot of people I see mostly on Twitter that say how they don't think Torreyes is like good or like an everyday starter or whatever. I'm like, he is what he is. He's the guy that he just comes up with big hit after big hit. And should he be a starter on an MLB team? No. Should he be a bench player? Sure. Why not?
No, he is what he is. He's a high level role guy, a utility guy that you can just throw in when you need him. And they've needed him of late with Didi going on paternity leave and all these other injuries and Bohm being sent down. He's played his role exactly what they need him to do, and I think he's been low key might be the best acquisition that they've made all year.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to argue otherwise, really. Like, it's just the fact that I think that the best way I could put it for Torreyes is that he is like the last guy off the bench on a contending team. Like, he can be asked to do some of like the little things, get the big hits off the bench, but like realistically, he probably shouldn't be in the starting lineup every day for a team that wants to contend.
Yeah, you can get plenty of upgrades for a Ronald Torreyes, but he's a good guy to just have hanging around as a total last resort.
Yeah. Well, the Phils got up in that one. They added a pinch hit homer from Brad Miller. Took game 1 by a final score of 7-4. Besides Wheeler, there really wasn't too much to complain about in this one. The offense kept going once again with the 7 runs. We'll see that theme come back again, but I think it was the 5th straight game they scored exactly 7, which is really, really weird.
And it's the lineups that they're putting out that is scoring these runs that I think everyone is absolutely bamboozled by. I mean, like we were talking about before we got on the pod, I forgot that Bonifacio was even on the team, and he's in these lineups that are scoring 7+ runs. It makes no sense. That's baseball.
It's a great use of the word bamboozled right there.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't spell bamboozled without bamboo. I think let's get that on a t-shirt.
I'll put that on a t-shirt.
All right. I'll get my dad to do it. He does all of our logo stuff.
Right after the iBud t-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. Move on to game 2 here. We had Andrew McCutchen hit probably the worst hanger I have ever seen from Patrick Corbin. I think it was like 67 miles an hour right down the middle. And I mean, that was a no doubter. Like, you cannot throw that pitch in an MLB game.
If you're going to throw a 65-mile-per-hour curveball, you don't put it over the heart of the plate. At least make it a somewhat, put in a somewhat challenging spot. And honestly, if McCutcheon didn't send that to Mars, it would have been a terrible at bat. No matter what happened after it.
Yeah, and I'm completely blanking here. Who started game 2? It was Suarez, right?
Yeah, it was a Ranger.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just the fact that they made these games interesting, but the big one in this one was Rafael Marchand hitting the homer to tie the game up. I think it's not. I don't even know how it's possible that he doesn't have any minor league homers, but he has 2 big league ones.
Only hits big league dingers.
And both games they were big homers.
Only hits big league dingers, but that's all that matters at this point. It is wild that you can go 1,046 minor league plate appearances without even looking into a home run, and he gets to the big leagues and hits 2 in 50 plate appearances. That's baseball. That's baseball.
Also, I completely blank. It was Matt Moore that started game 2. I don't know
God.
why. I just completely lost that in my head. I think I just try and block anything Matt Moore out of my head except for that one game where he was pulled from the no-hitter. But yeah, no, Rangers starting this weekend. I just had that one jumbled up there. It's weird having more than one lefty. We haven't had a lefty in the rotation on purpose since 2016, which was Adam Morgan. Awful stat. I can't believe
we'll get to it later too, but Ranger being good is pretty big considering the fact that Matt Moore has been so inconsistent.
That's a nice way to put it. We also had in this game, Harper had the big single to kind of break it open. I want to talk a little bit about Matt Vierling because he had 4 hits in that game and he hit 5 balls over 100 miles an hour, which is nuts for someone that's had 12 career at-bats.
Again, the people that are doing this, it's crazy. Matt Vierling has 4 hits in his MLB debut. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I think now he came up a little bit earlier and had a couple at bats. I think that might have been his first start, at least at first base. But it's just crazy that they've been able to have just the most random people. You even have Jankowski doing it sometimes, but it's starting to, I don't know, it's starting to look optimistic that even with all their guys not here, that their big guns are starting to hit more.
You don't know how, I mean, we'll see how sustainable the 7-run streak is. I mean, I really don't think it is considering the guys that are doing this. But I think if there's anything to take away from it, it's just the fact that they continue to find ways to win even though they're down so many guys. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this recent stretch, that they just refuse to die pretty much.
Yeah, and they just became the first team to ever have I think it was 7 3-run comebacks against the same team in one season.
That's also how terrible are the Nats to have that happen to them? I mean,
it's true, but at the same time, like it was early in the year, some of them too. So it wasn't always, they had some of their guys before.
They're still bad.
Yeah. I'm not gonna disagree with you on that one there. Last thing we pretty much had here, Bamboo Brad had another pinch hit home run. He's a weird guy. He's another guy where it's like he shouldn't be starting every day, but I love him off the bench. He's just an absolute wild card.
I think it was 2-3 weeks ago when I texted you that I can't take too much Brad Miller, and he had this recent stretch of 3 homers in 5 games, and I still can't take too much of him, but with Reese down for the year, if he can at least do a somewhat passable Reese impression at the plate, then that's pretty much all they really need to ask for at this point.
I'm still mad that he blew the perfect game.
That's why you hate him?
I'm not going to get over that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not convinced that he necessarily would have got it done, but like he was in a groove. But whatever. We don't need to make fun of Brad Miller too much. Vibes are high. Game 2 was a 12-6 Phillies win. Game 3 was where things got a little dicey. I know that we won this game, but we have to talk about Aaron Nola before anything else. He had his September Demons back again, and they were not friendly to him today.
No. And getting to the September Nola Demons, and when you look back historically, 2017, 2018 weren't terrible. Probably could have been better. 2019 was the absolute disaster. September Nola. think he had a 6.51 ERA, gave up at least 4 runs in 4 of those 5 September starts. Pretty much just put them completely out of the postseason race almost single-handedly. And then now in 2020, he wasn't terrible, but he didn't step up when they needed him to. I always think of the start against the Rays that knocked them out of playoff contention when they absolutely needed to win, and they could have won. And today, they're not off to a great start to try to bucking that trend. They got away with it today, but they need him to be competent at the absolute least if they want to, complete this comeback and get to the playoffs. They need him to be not Cy Young Aaron Nola, but at least passable Aaron Nola.
Yeah, I actually I had a class during the first part of this game, and of course I was like watching on my laptop. And after we went down 6-0, I'm like, man, I am risking my education to watch this. Like, I'm not paying attention to whatever he's saying because, like, I'm watching you, Aaron Nola, and now the Phillies are losing, and I'm gonna fail my test. But that's irrelevant on the matter. The matter is that once I got home, we decided to turn it up a little bit. 6-0 comeback is legit. I don't care who you're playing. The fact that they had already won the series, so if you walk out of there winning the series 2-1, they're probably still going to be in a good mood. But no, they kept battling. They chipped away, and 7-6 final. It's unbelievable.
First off, I could be a terrible fan because as soon as everything starts going sideways, I'll turn it off for extended periods of time, and I'll get my updates on Twitter. And if something interesting starts to happen, then I'll turn it back on. And once the McCutchen 3-run double happened, that's when you knew that maybe they were probably going to be able to pull this off. And yeah, it just, I know the Nats are terrible, but it's still hard to make a 6-0 comeback in a major league game, and especially with how depleted they are. It's still nothing to buck at.
And our September and just demons in general, Miami Marlins, will be interesting that we got them this weekend. They've been a team that usually we've had a lot of trouble with. It's been a little better this year, but it just always feels like when they have nothing to play for and we do, that's when it goes south.
And of course, the Marlins are the last series of the season too, right after a pivotal Braves series. So
I'm fully expecting us to win the Braves series and lose the Marlins. That's the only way that this can end.
I am ready to ride the emotional roller coaster for the last month.
Yeah, I'm not. But anyway, yeah, so let's get on to some of the main topics that we kind of have. We touched a little bit on Zack Wheeler and the innings and stuff, and it is a little bit of it kind of hurts my confidence a little bit when your ace just hasn't been reliable. When you look at the numbers for him in his last 10 starts, I don't know when exactly that goes back to, but his last 10 starts, 4.59 ERA with 69 strikeouts and 15 walks. Now, walks really haven't been too big of a problem for him this year, but the problem is he had a 2.05 ERA in the starts before those 10. So it's a valid question to ask if he is kind of starting to get fatigued, because even in his career, he's only approached this number once.
I think, and like I said earlier, I think the fatigue is definitely starting to set in. But with a guy that great, you sort of expect him to figure it out at some point. And this is sort of uncharted waters for him. But I'm fully confident in him to get it together and at least wrap up the season on a relatively high note, even though his ERA has gone up, I think, by almost a full point over the last month. But there's no reason to doubt that he'll bounce back.
Yeah, the rotation, it's kind of funny that next year, unless there are any trades or demotions or anything, they already have 5 starters for next year. I think it's very realistic that some combination of Wheeler, Nola, Eflin, Gibson, and Suarez is the starting 5 next year, and they address bullpen problems and lineup problems, but we'll talk about that in another episode. But the fact of the matter is, the rotation really isn't that bad when everybody's ready. It's unlikely that we'll see Zack Eflin, at least not 100% Zack Eflin for the rest of the season. So I think that the rotation going into a postseason series, it could get ugly if people are fatigued, but I think they play well to October baseball when you got a ground ball pitcher like Gibson and when it's cold out, like that kind of stuff can work here.
Yeah, I think even thinking past playoffs, because I think if they get to the playoffs, I mean, let's be real, they're probably gonna get washed in the playoffs in the first round if they somehow make it to the playoffs. But even thinking past that and going into the offseason, like you said, a 5-man rotation of Wheeler, Nola, Eflin, Gibson, Suarez. Who knows if that's going to be the actual 5-man rotation once we go into spring training next year? That's a pretty good blueprint to start off with. You make upgrades if you can, but if nothing, I mean, if worst comes to worst, and that's the worst case scenario, that's not a bad worst case scenario to have going into next season.
Yeah, and you could always just plan on upgrading the rotation at the deadline if you think that they're going to be good enough. So I think that that's something they consider. There are plenty of other options on free agency besides starters, but I think that it's going to be up to the starting pitching to be able to get it figured out down the stretch. And I hope Wheeler doesn't play himself into an injury trying to overthrow his limits, but at the same time, he'll be the first one to tell you that he'd rather go down trying like that.
Yeah, and it's just so huge to have a guy like Ranger Suarez in the back end too, because like I said, Matt Moore probably going to be back in Japan next year. So the fact that they have a reliable lefty in the back end of the rotation, which it's been well documented that the back end has been pretty inconsistent, to be nice about it. And just to have that insurance policy and the fact that, he's been building up his pitch count over the last few weeks and his last few starts, it's such a nice luxury to have that guy go into the home stretch.
Will agree with you there. All right, let's move on to a different topic here. We talked a little bit earlier about this, but Harper and the Most Valuable Player award could be heading for a crash course, because when you think about what the definition of valuable is and what the most valuable player is, this team would not be in a playoff race without him. That's just a fact. Like, that's not an opinion. That's a fact. You saw how they played without him. He is doing everything he can to will his team to the playoffs, kind of like Ryan Howard back in his earlier days here, when it was like you just couldn't throw him anything. And that entire month of August, I mean, the 1,200 OPS, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and minus maybe a little bit of a couple game stretch there, he's really been on like a month and a half heater at this point. And I mean, the August is if we look back at his MVP campaign, it's going to be August that got him the MVP, no doubt about it. But if even considering the entire year, if we're considering, the entire 162 game season overall, he's been pretty clearly the best all around hitter in the National League, at least. And I checked the odds before we got on. So right now, according to FanDuel, he has the second best MVP odds at plus 750, and Tatis is the favorite at minus 280. But I mean, I think it's going to come down to, unless both of them miss the playoffs, whichever team makes the playoffs, that's going to be the MVP at this point.
I think that's a reasonable way to do it, at least. And I think that it could be really cool if it's the Padres and the Phillies fighting for the last wild card spot if the Braves were to win the division.
Although I would argue that the NL East is probably going to be their ticket to the playoffs.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. All right, another thing I wanted to talk a little bit about here was we now have JT Realmuto playing first base, and he's not bad at it. I mean, Brad isn't great at it. Hoskins, he's kind of hit or miss. Hoskins kind of some easy play, but he almost picks everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, I mean that's where being a catcher comes into play. But I think they could get away with this for large stretches of games now because Marchand has been so confident behind the plate, and I think that's probably the main reason why they're going to be playing JT at first more, because now you have a guy like Marchand who is the complete opposite of Andrew Knapp, who is actually a very good defensive catcher and can hit in his own right, and that's just another insurance policy for them to utilize down the stretch, because if JT is hobbling as much as it seems like he is, it's just going to be even bigger down the stretch.
If they get the DH next year, then there's a lot of things that they can do, because you think about the Phillies farm system and any trade talks, if they decide to go after like Buxton, Ketel Marte, any center fielder or whatever it may be, Marchand's probably the most attractive trade chip, just because you have Realmuto locked up for a couple more years, and catcher still isn't the most important position in terms of building your team. So if someone wants Marchand, that's probably the most attractive piece of like the upper echelon prospects that we have who would be potentially included in a deal.
I'm just ready for the DH. I'm so tired of watching pitchers hit now. It can't come soon enough because it's wasted at this point. It's just wasted at bats every single time.
Yeah, if you have the DH, then what you can do is you can have Hoskins at DH and Real Muto play first, like more often, have Marchand behind the plate just because you don't want to wear JT down too early in his career. If you can make it so Real Muto's bat stays in the lineup and then have Marchand catch, that's great. But with that being said, if Marchand is still in this organization on opening day next year, there's really no justification for having Andrew Knapp on the roster for him, except that Knapp calls a good game. He's an awful hitter.
And he brings the vibes. But that's the only reason is that he brings the vibes and that's it. And yeah, wonder though, I wonder if they view the DH as like a saving grace for Bohm. We'll see how much faith they still have in him, but I think it's safe to say the main reason they sent him down was because of defense. But if they have enough faith in his bat, I could see them utilizing Bohm as a DH next year if the DH becomes a reality.
Yeah, it's just the problem with Bowman DH is like he just doesn't hit for enough power, at least not yet. You're going to have a slap hitting DH that can't play the field. I honestly would not mind if they tried to put him in left field because he's got a good arm and he's not outrageously slow, but he won't have to field ground balls. And I mean, I say this so many times. We won a World Series with Pat Burrell in left field.
Yeah, but I mean, that was Pat Burrell. There aren't many other Pat Burrells.
So. Just saying, Pat in his late ages playing left field wasn't very pretty.
But I'll just say this: so help me God, if I ever see Brad Miller as a DH.
Yeah, I don't know. I like having Brad as a bench guy. I wish we had a right-handed version of him, just like someone like the guy that you can just rely on to try and hit for power. Your righty bats off the bench or whoever the backup catcher is. Then you have Torreyes, who's not going to give you much pop. Then you got Luke Williams, who, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's homered since that Braves walk-off one.
Nope, I don't think he has.
Yeah.
But
so, I don't know.
It's like they have the blueprint in place. They just need to make a couple upgrades, maybe one or two upgrades on the bench, and then if you can upgrade at third, and where else? Do you think they could upgrade over McCutchen? Or do you think they keep him around for at least another year or two?
I mean, he's a free agent, so I don't know. I personally want Castellanos. I think that having him in this lineup would be awesome. In this ballpark would be awesome, and then him in left field would be amazing. He'd probably come in here and hit 4 or 5 right away. Be some good protection for Harper. We would just have to make sure all of our wives and children are hidden every time he homers.
I'm never getting tired of that meme. Never getting tired of that meme.
It doesn't get old. Like it's just it's a timeless one. But I don't know. I think it's not that I don't want McCutchen here. I think someone like a team kind of more rebuilding. Like I honestly wouldn't be surprised if a team like Pittsburgh brought him in as like a veteran mentor, to like play again in Pittsburgh, maybe trade him at next year's deadline to a contender, get something for him. Like he's still got some in the tank as a hitter. Clearly, I could see him in the American League too.
Yeah, no, he has more than enough in the tank. It's just that when you see him in the lineup and you just think you can definitely get a better upgrade over him, especially with the trajectory that this team is on right now, because they need to take advantage of Bryce Harper's prime as much as they can. So any upgrade that you can potentially make across the board, they have to hop on it.
Yeah, if I have to guess what's going to happen is he's going to sign to be a DH on like a pretty bad AL team, Baltimore, Kansas City, like mentor the young guys, and then they'll like trade him at the dedeadline.
I feel like he's better enough to at least be on a somewhat contender. Trying to think.
I don't know, I guess it depends if he wants to go somewhere where he might not start right away. Like that's the thing. If any contending team might not need him, but I don't know. It could be a team that has pretty much everything good and doesn't have to pay him as much, but he's obviously still got the power.
Yeah, absolutely.
If he brought the Dreads back for the postseason run, I think they'd make it.
Oh man, Dreads Kutch was MVP Kutch. That was the best version of McCutchen ever.
Yeah. All right, last kind of thing here I just wanted to mention is the fact that the last time the Phillies scored 7 runs in 7 or more runs in 7 games in a row was 1933 when Chuck Klein won MVP. Like that's how long we're going back.
That was the FDR administration.
Like, how did a team with Utley, Rollins, Howard, Worth, like, how did none of them do that? 1980, any of those teams do what this team is doing?
That's baseball. We know. We played it all our lives. Baseball is the weirdest game out there, and these sorts of things happen all the time. And the only thing you can say is because that's baseball. Anyone can get hot at any point. Doesn't matter who you are. Juan Marchand has two major league home runs and 0 minor league home runs. That's how weird this game is.
I still can't get over the Marchand one. But let's take a look at the series that is upcoming here. As we talked about a little bit, we got the Marlins. Historically, they've been one of our demons. That's not exactly sugarcoating anything. The fact that there are some years, I mean, they even made it to the NLCS not the NLCS. They made it to the NLDS against the Braves last year and
lost their first playoff series ever. Their first playoff series ever.
Yeah, no, that's such a random franchise. But we got Sandy Alcantara on Friday night. He is very tough. He's going up against Kyle Gibson. I think this one could be a little snooze fest. I think it could be a little low scoring.
Yeah, but I mean, just thinking, just thinking ahead to this series and beyond. I mean, the Phillies have the easiest schedule going ahead. Yeah, they have this series and then they play the Marlins at the end of the season. If they win the games that they're supposed to win, and things play out in a different way, they're going to be in the playoffs. I think. Just don't be the September Phillies of past, and you should sweep the Marlins this coming weekend and continue to win the games that you're supposed to win, and you're going to be in the playoffs.
It's interesting. I said before the week I'd be fine with 5-1 or better, and I think if they win 2 out of 3 in Miami, I'm not going to cry about it. Like, a sweep would be great, but I think that kind of a team that has been giving you a lot of trouble in the past in Miami, I think it wouldn't be the biggest end of the world if they drop one of the games. But with that being said, you go in winning 6 in a row. You got to take on Milwaukee in Milwaukee next week. That's going to be tough. It's going to be very difficult.
That's what I was thinking too, because I mean, the Brewers series after that is the hardest series that they're going to have this entire month until the Braves series at the end of the month, which I believe is going to determine the division. And because after that, you have after this Brewers series, you have series against the Orioles, the Pirates, and the Cubs and the Rockies. So you have to win the games that you're supposed to win right now, and at least try to take 1 or 2 out of 3 from the Brewers. So that's why it is absolutely imperative for them to win the games that they are absolutely supposed to win.
Yeah, Milwaukee is not going to be easy. And I know that the Braves schedule is harder than ours down the stretch, but it's not impossible. All right, game 2 against the Marlins on 6-10 on Saturday. We got Ranger Suarez and Jesus Luzardo. Luzardo was part of the Starling Marte trade back in July, and it's kind of surprising that the A's jumped ship from him so quickly in his career, but they're going for it this year. Luzardo hasn't really been great, but he was a top prospect for a reason.
But we get to watch Ranger again. And if Ranger just needs to keep on this groove that he's been on for a while now, and just keep continuing to prove that he has the longevity to be a legitimate starter.
There's no reason he can't be. He has been doing a really good job at kind of adding more stuff in his repertoire, because the fastball he locates well. He doesn't really gas you up. He's going to sit in the mid-90s for the most part. His changeup is really good, and he's been doing a good job of kind of adding a little bit more to that. He's going to need to be able to execute multiple pitches if he's not really throwing over 95. He's the guy rounding out your rotation. He's fine being the number 5. You're not going to need to ask for him anything crazy. If he ends anywhere around like a 4-ish ERA, maybe even a little above, that's fine.
He's been even better than a 4-ish ERA. I mean, he's just been steady for a solid month now. And I think it's past the point where it's sort of luck. And I think it's past even a trend at this point. I think he might be legitimately solid.
He feels like one of the guys that he's going to have a lot of seasons in the big leagues that look the same. Like a very consistent guy. He's probably never going to contend for a Cy Young, but he's probably also not going to be the kind of guy where you're like, get him out of here. Like, he's just going to be someone that you can trust, and you build a rotation above him so you can have him kind of come back and just give you a win a decent amount of the times.
He's going to be, if he can continue on this trajectory, he's going to be a solid 3 or 4 guy in the rotation for a bunch of years.
And it's just so nice to have a lefty because it's been a long time. It's been really since Cliff Lee since we've had a good, consistent lefty throwing for us. Cole Hamels, I guess, probably.
Since I was going to say since the tail end of the Cole Hamels era. It's been a while.
Hamels, I was forgetting about. I mean, Lee was like dominant in that 1 year, but obviously, I think let's see. So we got Sunday is Zack Wheeler. As of right now, the Marlins don't have a starter listed for that. That usually means it's going to be someone bad, which is not good for the Phillies because they like to play bad against the pitchers nobody knows.
And perfect bounce back opportunity for Wheeler too to beat up on a bad team.
Yeah, it was worrying me a little bit about that Nationals one, and he could definitely silence. I wouldn't say they're not like haters or any of the critics. Like I think people are kind of understanding that he has the talent to figure this out. It's not like his velocity's down. I think he's just getting a little more wild because he knows he has to put a little more on it. And having a good start here could kind of have everybody be like, all right, relax. Like he's good. It was just a little bump in the road.
And if Joe Girardi can avoid, keeping him out there into the 6th or 7th inning, even though he's given up multiple runs and he's clearly fatigued, being able to not leave him out to dry, but also understand when he is sort of starting to get tired is going to be pretty huge for these starts going forward. To not tire him to the point where he's going to be bad in the playoffs, should they get to the playoffs.
This is where Joe makes his money because if he got hired here by everybody saying the reason that he was so successful is because of his bullpen management, then it doesn't matter what he's done all year until now. I learned that this summer playing in Delco League. I didn't have a great season, and my coach is basically like, listen, like we're in the finals now. Like nothing else before that matters. Like it's just get it done now, and everybody will forget the time before that. If he can pull the right strings and get him in the playoffs this year, then I think that people will kind of forget some of the awful decisions he's made along the road.
I mean, I think he's been fired at least 5 different times this season. It feels like at least 5 times he's been fired. I mean, it was only about a week ago when they were ready to kick him to the curb after they went down back to 500. But yeah, this is when you prove that you're actually capable for the job.
Yeah, and I mean, I won't even say that their success right now is a result of him. I mean, they're swinging the bat. Like that's he hasn't been awful in their win streak, but it's not like I'm sitting after a game and I'm like Girardi won that game because that doesn't really happen that often with him.
Well, and just trusting his bullpen too, which the bullpen doesn't get enough credit for how well they've managed everything for the last few weeks. They rebounded pretty well, and just being able that's really the one adjustment that he's made, and it's such a simple adjustment. Just trust your bullpen when your starters aren't giving it their 100% best stuff. So just keep relying on those guys because they've been getting the job done lately.
Yeah, I think going into this series, I would say my biggest key is to strike early in games because I feel like a lot of their problem in Miami comes from the fact that they get down early and they got to try and fight back. They did that in multiple times against the Nationals, as we saw when you're playing in those like dead stadiums. Trying to create your own spark early on is how you like catch the flame and have a good day as a whole offensively. So I would like to jump on Miami starters quickly.
And getting DD back, I think, is going to be huge for that lineup as well. And getting Jankowski back, just getting those established guys back into the lineup will be nice. And we don't have to have too many wild cards in the lineup at one time.
It's somehow been working, but for the fact of the matter, it's good to get the guys back to have the more depth. That's been the biggest problem. Does that mean that when Knapp is back, then Marchand goes down? Because like I don't know. I almost trust Marchand more.
You have to keep Marchand around. He's so much better than Knapp, and I hope that they would be able to realize that because he's so much better than what Knapp is, and I feel like they almost have to keep him around.
That's pretty much it. All right, well that's pretty much all I got here. I think we covered everything we were planning on. All right, we all good?
They're making me start to believe again, and I don't like that feeling. I am ready to be hurt again.
Yeah, it would have been so easy for us to just jump ship after the sweep at Arizona, but we have some psychological disorder that makes us root for this team and watch it every single day. But for for whatever reason, we're still here.
So it's actually a good time to plug it right now. So I've been working on this story. I've been developing it over the last couple of days. I'm calling it. It's called the 6 stages of Philly sports grief. And because we go through, I mean, well, the general phases of grief, but for us Philly fans, we have 6 specific phases. We have high hopes, then complete dismissal, then revived hope, then irrational confidence, then reality check, and then total heartbreak. And right now, yeah, Hoskins and Eflin going down and going back under 500 should have been the reality check that goes into total heartbreak. But this last stretch of games has really sort of prevented us from actually going into full-time reality check. So I'm not totally. I don't think this is totally the irrational confidence stage, but it's somewhere in between, and I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I want to. I can't wait for that article. Is it going to be on the Painted Lines website?
I will post it on the Painted Lines
Oh, that's awesome. That's going to be great.
because
Can't
I
wait to
mean,
see that.
I'm so ready to just get this reality check out of the way so that we can just get onto the heartbreak.
Hey, they kept us in long enough for the Eagles to get here. That's always the goal.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't think we're going to be going through 6 stages with this Eagles team. So
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, that will bring an end to episode 40. We have reached the big 4-0, breaking the bank. Obviously, Joey, episode 1 for you, but thank you so much for joining me today. Really enjoyed it.
my guy, thank you so much for having me on. Look forward to doing more of these down the road with you.
Absolutely. All right, thank you everyone for tuning in. Not exactly sure when the next one will be. I think we play against Miami for the whole weekend, so maybe Sunday after that game, but that could just depend on Drew's availability and everyone else. But we will make it known. Once again, thank you, Joe, and we will see you guys later.